So you may have noticed that tires and suspension lifts did not make my list at all. I felt that those two categories belonged more in a Goldilocks conversation, meaning something that's not too little, but not too much, but just right. So for tires, I had 31-inch street tires on my truck when I first bought it. I then got 32-inch Cooper Discover ATP tires from Discount Tire Direct. It's a very mild all-terrain tread. And then I got the 33 by 10.5, 15 BF Goodrich KM2 mud terrain tires. And so if I was going to do my truck all over again, I would go for the 32-inch tire, even though the 33s look a lot better, especially if you got a lot of lift. They fill up that fender arch nicely, but it does sap the torque out of your engine. So for streetable driving, it does have a noticeable impact. Additionally, the more aggressive tread pattern, it does have some noise. It's road noise. I feel like an old man saying this because when I was younger, you want the loud exhaust, you want the biggest tires possible, and you don't care what it sounds like. But realistically, when even someone that off-roads a lot, you probably spend most of your time daily driving your truck unless you have multiple vehicles. So that being said, for the average Xterra user that goes off-road occasionally, I would recommend a 32-inch all-terrain tire. Now for the suspension lift, I've got the upper control arms in the front. I've got a big reinforced steering system to hold that alignment. I've got the diff drop bushing so I can go for a big suspension lift in the front. But when it's all said and done, I look at all that work and all of the frustration that it took to get everything to work without ruining my tire alignment, without wearing my tires unevenly, and it just seemed like it wasn't worth all the effort to me. Additionally, with the upper control arms, they have those urethane bushings, and they do allow for a lot of articulation on those front control arms, but it also does transmit more forces directly into the vehicle. With the stock control arms, you have a nice soft rubber bushing that dampens a lot of the impact shocks and the impact loads from the road, so a sharp pothole. Now, a lot of flex and articulation in the front suspension is really good if you have an open differential, but remember how I talked about how much I love my Laka? Well, all of a sudden, flex in the front end doesn't really matter as much anymore because even if one tire can't reach the ground, I'm still going to power both of them. But another thing that you run into with trying to do a suspension lift is that it's really easy to lift the rear of the vehicle. You can do the add-a-leaf packs, you can do adjustable shackles, you can do oversized shackles, you can do the revolver shackles, you can do all sorts of combinations. And in my experience, it's very difficult to actually lift the front and the rear the same amount to maintain a decent rake. So if I was going to do my truck again, I would have not bothered with the control arms in the front. I would have kept the stock control arms. I would have adjusted the torsion bars to as much lift height as I could reasonably get out of the front end without reaching that point where you start stressing steering components and CV axles. And then I would have gotten the adjustable shackles from 4x4parts.com, and those are actually the shackles that I have. And I would have chosen the hole setting on the adjustable shackle that gives me the rake that I want. Well, some people might say, well, now you got extra metal hanging off the bottom of your shackle. Well, that's when you take an angle grinder, just cut off the extra tab of metal, and you have your stance set the way that you want it. A lot of people end up doing an easy 3 or almost 4 inches in the rear because you have so many different options, and then they try and lift the front end. Well, the front end doesn't match, and now your truck is nose down quite heavily, and then you're tempted to overlift the front end, and that gets you even further into the damaging zone of tie rod angles and CV axles. So in summary, if I was going to build my Xterra from the ground up and start all over again, I would go easy on the suspension lift, and I would pair it with the body lift. I would go for a 32-inch aggressive all-terrain tire, and then I would go ahead and reinforce the steering system so you're not going to break down and be left stranded on the trail. I would pair that with a Laka in the front differential to give you that maximum off-road traction. That'll improve some of the durability characteristics since you don't need to bump and run, and it also reduces the need for that extra articulation from the upper control arms and full suspension lift. I would make sure that you get a CB radio with a good antenna and tunable tip so you can talk to your friends on the trail and on the road. And then just for fun, because I like the way it sounds, I would do the stock airbox mod with the AEM dry flow filter, and I'd go ahead and do my MagnaFlow exhaust the way that I did it. So you may notice that I didn't really talk about armor today. I do like armor, and I would probably do armor again, but for the most part, for a casual off-roader, it's probably a little bit overkill, and it's more expensive that it makes it one of those less attainable mods for most people. If I had to rank the different armor pieces that I have, I would say the front bumper is the most useful, especially with the recovery points that it has and the ability to have a winch on the front. I like my rear bumper because I like the tire carrier, so I don't have to carry my spare tire in the cargo area. I don't like having the spare tire underneath the vehicle, because then what happens if you're stuck and need the spare tire but you're on a rocky trail and you can't get under your vehicle. So the rock sliders, I like the rock sliders. I use them more as a step rail because my wife is short. I don't think I've ever actually landed on them for the most part. If you pick your line well, you can usually straddle the rocks and not hit. But of course, once you do suspension lifts and larger tires and body lifts, it reduces the need to really have the rock sliders. The biggest thing that Armor actually provides is a good solid recovery point, so you can hook a strap or a winch up and get yourself unstuck, and it gives you a place to put your high lift jack on. Once you start lifting your vehicle enough, you need a high lift jack because your normal jack is not going to be able to reach the frame. So those are all good reasons to get Armor, but it's probably not necessary for the average user, which is why I did not bring them up in this list. So thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. I enjoyed talking about Xterras, so leave in the comments below what your favorite mods and least favorite mods are that you've done to your Xterra. Let me know if you got any other questions or any other suggestions for future videos.